Hey there, YouTube, it's Petey Two Finger with the 3B, the triple B. This is a guitar pedal. It's a triple booster. And you plug in and go. It's got a battery pack, lithium ion rechargeable 18650 cells that you remove, pop them in the charger when it's time to charge them. We got, just so you know, and a handy dandy pick holder. Got my old thrush sticker, you remember those? I'm Polish. Master volume, I put this on today. I had this inside as a set and forget, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to put that on the front panel. There's 3 circuits. The middle one is stock, and that's a Demeter Fat Control. Have you ever heard of the Eric Clapton mid-range boost? That's this. And the concept for this is I use my new XMG30, which is a multi-effector amp cab sim modeler that really sounds phenomenal. And it's a budget unit, so they don't give you like 7 different kinds of chorus pedals in it. There's 2, or maybe there's 3. But what they do give you is unbelievably good sounding amp models, and you can pairing that with downloading your own impulse responses. But what I found to really kick it off and make it chef's kissable was running some boost pedals with it. And I started off with a ZVEX Show. I started off with the deficit because I was using a humbucker guitar. I made a bunch of patches, which was a real lot of work. And then I started playing a single coil guitar, which was much quieter output. So I looked it up, and rather than like go in and re-edit all the patches, guys were like, oh, you just use a boost pedal. And then I started using like a transparent boost. And then I was like, started reading about guys using stuff that gave it color, like the ZVEX Show is glassy, and to me that means a little treble. And sure enough, it's pretty much a standard affair until you get past noon, and then it starts adding more character to the sound, changing the sound, and I really like that. So that sent me on this adventure, which was trying out every different possible option, trying NPN, PNP, silicon, germanium, and then all different circuits. So I got silly with it, and I have 5 of these. This is the only all-in-one. The other ones are individual pedals that are on little boards that have their own battery pack. But unlike one of them, it's just a ZVEX Show and a Klon, and then I got another one. It's a Silicon Rangemaster with a Cot 50, with a Timmy, with a Clark Gainster. That's actually the Hoochie Mama, which uses paper and oil old tube amp parts. Big honkin' carbon comp resistors, paper and oil capacitors, really expensive components. That's the Hoochie Mama. Then I got a full tone 4-knob 2B, I think it's called, or Fat Boost, maybe it is, version 2, paired up with a Catalan bred Naga Viper, which is a heavily modded modern version of the Dallas Rangemaster. That's a really good pedal, but it's not a Rangemaster. I tried the Runoff Groove Omega, which I really like. It's not a Rangemaster. People say, oh, it's really close. No, it's nothing like it. Well, it's similar. It's much hairier. It's got more gain dirt, more distortion to it. So if you're into distortion and you're looking for a boost, man, that Runoff Groove Omega is a smoking boost. That's a really excellent circuit. It uses off-the-shelf, readily available, super affordable silicon 2 transistors, but man, is that a good sounding boost. Really is. And it's a full range, meaning You have these treble boosts. Some of them will really eliminate all your mids and your bass. Then you have the full range boost, which they brighten it up, but they leave most of your mids and bass intact. A lot of them will have a control for that, where if you turn it all the way the one way, it'll give you more bass. The way I like to handle it, I use an authentic germanium. I mean, mine's NPN, so is it authentic? But I use a low leaker Mullard 950, a really good transistor, perfect for the Rangemaster. And then right after it, I'll use another pedal that boosts the bass. And that's my modified EP boost. So the 3B has a treble boost, a mid-range boost, and a bass boost. The bass boost is this modified EP boost, which has toggle switches to give it extra gusto on the treble or the bottom end for the bass. So these switches, if I'm playing and I need to tweak, I just hit one of these switches and it gets me where I need to go. Master volumes, now it's mounted on the top. I had a homemade voltage regulator board, which was filter and capacitors with the 7809 with a big honking heat sink on it. I got rid of that today because I kept knocking it around and it was bending, and I'm like, that thing's going to crack. So I put a store-bought, like $2 7809 unit that has significant filtering capacitors on it. I installed that today. It's got a light 'em up switch. And then this mod here, when you're dealing with a germanium Rangemaster, some folks will tell you if the transistor's leaky, it'll be noisy. Well, I got news for you. Even if you don't have a leaker, even if you have the best germanium transistor in the world that's not leaking at all, the germanium Rangemasters produce hiss. It's just a fact of life. I have one here that's on a board with a Greer amplification light speed. That is the best low gain overdrive pedal I've ever played through. It's completely different than a Klon. It gets way less and way more of a natural thing. But man, is that a great pedal. The Greer amplification light speed. It uses the most expensive op amp that I know of. The OPA 2134 made by Burr Brown. Or is it Burr Brown designed it and Texas Instruments makes it? I don't know. I do know they're like $8 for that chip, as opposed to 50 cents for your, or what, a nickel, for the NE5532, the counterfeit, where the Texas Instruments logo, the emblem looks like Long Island. It doesn't really look like Texas. So that board has a the silent Rangemaster. It has an MP18N, I think, Russian germanium flying saucer, or top hat, do you call it? I think the flying saucers are the real small ones. The bigger ones I call top hats because they're different, you know. But that circuit, it's built on a PCB I got from Teda.com for $5. And that's the quietest Rangemaster, meaning it doesn't produce hiss. So I really like that board. It's got a modified EP boost in the middle of it. That the mod is just, it opens it up for, gives it more bass with this toggle switch that you can throw. And same thing for the high end. So I had a guy tell me, the EP boost doesn't make it bassy. Well, mine do, as I build them that way. Anyway, oh, and he also told me he hates an EP boost. It's a clean boost. And you hate it? Somebody doesn't know how to bias a JFET. So, the middle one is the Eric Clapton boost, which is a mid-range booster. It's actually the Demeter Fat Control, which is a different circuit than the Eric Clapton, but they do about the same thing. And I can run all three of these. I mean, the idea is it's a treble boost, a mid-range boost, and a bass boost. See how that works? And running this in the effects loop of my new XMG30, which is this really excellent but affordable amp modeler with effects, I'm getting the best guitar tone I've ever got in my life by a significant stretch. And a lot of that is the new XMG30, and a little bit of it is this. And you could get really close by just running a tube screamer in the I'm going to be honest, I've tried like all of my pedals, and I've built a bunch of circuits and played around with this. Anytime you put a analog pedal and you can try it before the effector or in the effects loop is where I like to run it. And then you can physically assign this to where it will sit in the effects chain. So I put it right in the beginning. Sometimes I'll have a compressor in front of it, but typically right after it, this is virtually because it's on a little screen on the multi-effect, but typically coming out of this, it'll be like the guitar comes into the multi-effector. It leaves the multi-effector, goes in through these three boosts, comes out, goes back into the multi-effector, and it'll go through an EQ maybe, or the noise gate. Then next is the amplifier, next is the cabinet simulator, and then it'll be my modulation effects, my reverb, and my delay. And to find that the effects become most pronounced the further to the end of the chain that they're placed. So it's not always the rule of thumb is what I just told you, but sometimes I do things differently. And I'm getting a real natural, pick sensitive, slight distortion, just the really what you want, what you wouldn't think you could get digitally with this. The Rangemaster is doing that. Combining it with these on the edge of breakup amp sims, this is what kicks it off. This in combo with that. Because running the treble booster on its own, it gives you this magical thing, this distortion, which is, this isn't smoke on the water distortion. It's really mostly clean tones I'm playing, but there's enough of this grit, chef's kiss. This is guitar tone. And I found running this on its own, it's too extreme. It just guts the bass out of the picture. So I'm running this modified EP boost, which brings the bass back. And that's how that works. So you got your treble boost running, giving you that little bit of grit, and I don't crank it. It's on. It's set to the maximum treble. And same thing with the EP boost, which is supposed to bring back the bass. And sometimes I'll it'll be a little bit much, so I'll kill the bass toggle, which is a bass booster. And where can you go from there? Nowhere. Well, you still got your mid-range. So if you need to take a solo or you want something to stick out, you know where to go. And I can have this running and just go with this. It's pretty much, I tend to almost always have the Rangemaster on because that's really giving me my main thing. That's my always on. But it's not ever really on by itself. I'm either running one of these two with it. So if you know about Rangemasters, and it's a lot to take in, and again, I should speculate, I'm not saying I'm some expert and I've arrived on the top of the mountain, but I have put in a significant amount of testing and building different things and trying different things. Building stuff and then trying from my extensive pedal collection to get the best possible tone. So that's why I'm proud of this accomplishment and why I feel like once I finish this, I'm going to be using it for a while. But some folks will tell you if your Rangemaster is making hiss, it's because you have a bad transistor. Well, even with the lowest leakage possible, it still makes noise. And that's because what a germanium boost does. It's boosting past the frequency range of the guitar, and there's nothing there, so it's just hiss. And if you have boost after that's boosting the hiss, it's going to make it more prominent. You're going to hear it. Even if you have a noise gate, there's that time while the noise gate's shutting off where you can hear it in there. And I've worked really hard to figure out how to subvert this issue and minimize it. Today, I installed the new power pack, got rid of the old one. We did a capacitor modification on the germanium transistor for the Rangemaster, and we put the master volume on the front panel. This capacitor modification is a 3-position toggle. Set in the middle, Rangemaster is stock. Set in the top position, it applies a 100 picofarad, which sounds like a lot. It's not. It's a tiny amount of capacitance. Actually, it's a 0.01 microfarad capacitance on the transistor in between the base and the collector, which is like kind of like you could think of the input of the capacitor. It's not on the output leg, which would be the emitter. It's the base and the collector. So if you have it pointing up, you get a little bit of treble cut. In the middle, there's no treble cut. And if you go down, it's 0.02. It's twice the capacitance, or 200 picofarad capacitance between the base and the collector of the Mullard 950 NPN germanium transistor. It's the heart of the first stage Rangemaster treble booster. So if I start really gaining up on that and I've got it cranked and it's a little bit spitty hissy, I can pick what I want. And you can hear it. I mean, like my test rig is not really that hi-fi, and by hi-fi I mean having extreme frequency response, treble and bass. It's more of a mid-range amp. And you could think of like if you have a little pea shooter Fender Champ or something and you set all the EQs at noon, you're not diming everything. That's kind of like what I'm talking about. You're not going to be able to hear the hiss because that amp doesn't reproduce that part of the frequency spectrum very well. If you're playing direct into the board and you got really good headphones on and your stuff is EQ'd kind of hot and sizzly, you might be able to hear it in between songs when the noise gate's engaging and disengaging, which is really a minimal thing for me to complain about. But I didn't want to just go throwing snubber caps all over the board willy-nilly like someone I know. So I put it on a toggle switch, and you have the option of a little bit stock or a little more, and that's how that works. That's my 3B. It's my triple boost pedal. If you're curious what this sounds like, you could click on any one of my remote jam videos, and I'm using about the same thing. A lot of times in those, I'm using a board that just has the two. It just has the EP and the Rangemaster. And I will admit, the oddball is the Clapton, the mid-range boost. But the other day we played and I started using it. I started trying it, and I had all three of them on. It's really cool. That's a really cool idea. Like, this could be mass-produced. This should be mass-produced. People would use this in their, along with their Helix and their Axe Effects and their Kemper. You say, well, why wouldn't you use a digital model? Because it's a digital model, and sometimes, especially on a gain pedal, That's where it's really going to make a difference, and it's going to give you that the feel, that sag, and the digging in with the pick and having it respond with giving you some more grit and distortion, where if you pick softly it's clean. That's the stuff that where guitar players are like, you know, the angels come down and sing the chef's kiss. And that's the part that's missing from most of the digital end of the deal that people gripe about. So yeah, I figured out how to beat the system with my 3B. How do you like that? Pat myself on the back, and extra special thanks to my helper Grumpy for helping me out with this. Spent a lot of work on that. I use these PCBs that solder onto the back of the 3P DT stop switch. That's the switch that you step on. Click, click. The bypass switches. There's 9 connections on there. Okay? It's a true bypass circuit, and it also runs the LED. So these PCBs you solder on there, and they give you little individual pads that are labeled. So it makes it easier to hook everything up. And typically what I'll do is I'll glob paste flux all over the pins of that switch, and then I'll put the PCB on and solder it. And that paste flux, it helps the solder stick to the lugs quicker. Well, that flux is hard to get out of there, and it'll cause problems for you. It'll give you interference. It'll have your LED run at half mast. It'll make it crackle. And I had that on all 3 of those switches. I got that on there and overdid it. And it was a hell of a time heating them, reheating them, and spraying alcohol through it, trying to get it to silence. And now I finally, you know, I learned my lesson about that. Don't do that. And I also got that fixed. I fixed it. So that was one of the reasons why I had built that, and I had taken it out. Every time I take it out, I would plug it in and we would start playing. And about 10 minutes into it, it would start giving me a little intermittent noise. Plus, I had a reversed capacitor in there on the point-to-point tag board. So, I mean, hey, it happens. Anyway, you guys, there's enough of my yakking. I always like to try to say, hug your pets and stay warm. But most importantly, peace.